Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my presentation about the Korean War. I chose to talk about this topic because it's a history that's long forgotten by most people. As you ask people today what Korean War was, and the majority of them probably can't even answer that anymore. In 1945, after World War II has ended, uh, Russia and the United States were both wondering what to do with the Korean Peninsula, as the peninsula always belonged to the Japanese Imperial Army up until the end of the war. Russia decided they would take control of the north, while the United States would control the south. On June 25th of 1950, 75,000 North Korean troops, though, would cross the 38th parallel line, invading South Korea and starting a war. Uh, China would eventually come to the aid of North Korea, while the United States would defend the South Korean army, and they considered their war against communism. Spearheaded by heavy tanks and mortar barrage, South was being overwhelmed, so the Koreans decided to fight bravely and start strapping bombs to their body to blow up tanks to try to stop the North from invading even further into the South. Shortly, though, after American citizens were evacuated, United States President Truman called for assist with North Korea from United Nations troops and United States soldiers, sending them over to basically help fight the war, while Russia was actually condemning the war and calling for a ceasefire. One of the biggest battles of this, though, which is long forgotten, was the Battle of Chosin Reservoir. The battle took place in November of 1950, not long after the Korean War had started, and wasn't part of the war yet. The China Reservoir, which was off the coast of North Korea by China's Siberia coast, uh, was man-made, high in the mountains, and which provided hydroelectric power to the industrial cities and plains of Korea. U.S. and British troops thought this would be their last offensive attack. The Chosin Reservoir, North Korea, just a few months into the war, was teetering on defeat. The U.S. thought that by doing this mission they would end the war and be home by Christmas, but little did they know that unforetold things were about to happen from an enemy to the north. A new enemy had arrived, China, a master infiltration. They had intervened and come to aid their ally Kim Jong Un. Uh, and with it now being cold out there, the 30,000 troops not only had to worry about the frigid temperatures, but the 80,000 Chinese army that was surrounding them. With it being 65 miles away from the sea and high in the mountains, the temperatures were getting all the way down to negative 34 degrees Fahrenheit. The U.S. and British troops saw that their only hope for escaping was to hack their way through the enemy in a retreat. With the combat and the frigid temperatures would claim the life of 3,000 of the 15,000 U.S. troops that were fighting in a 17-day struggle. The heaviest casualties, though, would come from the China side, with 60,000 men dying from the frigid temperatures and battles, and they'd have to go on to replace them. And even though Hollywood doesn't talk about this battle very much, it's etched very much in the memories of the veterans, such as my grandfather who fought in it. The Korean War was ultimate back and forth war. They crossed the DMZ lines plenty of times. Neither side could ever really gain momentum. They'd go up and they'd push back. The United States wanted to try to stop this war as fast as they could before it spread over to Russia and start World War III, because that was their biggest fear. And then in 1953, on July 27th, it would end in a stalemate, as both sides were getting nowhere and agreed to an armistice truce. And while the invasion had ended on that day of the war was technically not over, as it's just a ceasefire that was signed. Uh, but technically speaking, with the armistice agreement and everything, just a ceasefire was put in place, and it just set up basically a demilitarized zone that both North and South would patrol and try to keep peace among tensions. But at any time, a war could kick off again. But then in 1972, a TV show called MASH became a hit series and lasted to 1983, where it was a show basically covering all the stuff about the Korean War that no one remembered or was already forgetting about. And it was one of the longest running shows of its time. North Korea, though, while the war has ended and a ceasefire threat, the threat of North Korea still lingers, with Kim Jong Un passing away, giving control to his unpredictable son, Kim Jong Un. He has been unpredictable and constantly threatens the United States and South Korea with war. North Korea has successfully launched missiles as of recently that's now capable of carrying nuclear warheads all the way to the coast of the United States. And with this, China has finally been pressured to step up, and they've even tried putting sanctions on them to try to get them to remain peaceful and come to agreement. The DMZ line, which was established at the end of the war, as almost every single day has instances that happen where it'll be small skirmishes of somebody firing at somebody, not really know what's going on, and these skirmishes go unreported because they happen almost every day, and to North and South Korea, they're there and the same. And while North Korea constantly threatens war, it's something neither North wants or the South wants, as it would just be very costly and have a lot of lives ended, and basically would get nobody nowhere. It would just lead to a lot of death, just like the last war. With that being said, to me, there's still peaceful hopes with everybody pressurizing the international community that they can still reach resolution with Korea without ever actually going to another conflict, which needs to happen soon because conflict would do nothing but cause a lot of deaths.